This is Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and today's guest is Sarah Stubbs. Sarah is the co-host of Final Girls Feast, a podcast about food in horror movies, and runs Geeks Who Eat, a food and pop culture site with her husband, Matthew. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Been trying to get you on for a while. Again. Yeah, let's just get it right out of the way. We already recorded this episode once, and for some odd reason, I was using a different software and it got rid of over half of it. So yeah, not very fun.
I mean, it's a good thing I really like this movie, right?
Yes, exactly. Oh man. Yeah. So, I have been trying to get Sarah on the show for a little while. Just trying to get schedules to work out and everything before all of that, and we got it all done and last time, and it just failed spectacularly. But we're going to attempt this again. We are in the middle of our Quentin Tarantino series, and we are talking the Kill Bill movies today.
I think you meant the best movies of the Tarantino series.
That's your opinion, and you're entitled to it.
I mean, as my husband has found out after, being together for like almost 8 years, I'm almost always right. So he won't give me always right, but I've finally gotten to the point where he will acknowledge that I'm almost always right.
Yeah, that's always a hard thing for husbands. We never want to admit, and we will let you know when we are right. We will definitely let you know. I was right. So
it's so true.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So yeah, we are discussing Kill Bill again, but hopefully we can. It's been actually a few weeks since we did discuss it. I have a poor memory, so I don't even remember what all we discussed. So we are gonna just try to jump back into this and recreate.
I mean, I love this movie, so I can always talk about this movie. This is, like I said, this is my favorite of Tarantino's. So for me, it's always a pleasure to get to talk about Kill Bill.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed them. I was lucky enough that I got to see. I've pretty much been able to see most of Tarantino's work in the theater. I think there's only 2 movies I have not seen in the theater, and that was Reservoir Dogs, because I didn't know about him at the time, and Once Upon a Time. The Hateful Eight was the only other one I did not see in theaters. But that one was a funky one. I think the theater showings they weren't as prevalent at that time for some reason. He was doing a roadshow version of it also, where he was because it's long. I think that was just one of the things where people were like, no, we're not putting that in theater.
I would say that I definitely have been like hit or miss with seeing Tarantino in the theater. Like, I've only seen a handful. Like, I saw the Kill Bill movies, and I saw Hateful Eight in the theater, but I did not see the Roadshow, which kind of disappoints me. I wish I could have.
Yeah.
And then I saw Inglourious Bastards in the theater, and I think that's actually it.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've seen most, so I'm proud of that so far.
I mean, I've actually seen all of his movies, just not all theatrically.
Right.
I think the only thing of his that I haven't seen is like that he has a short that it was a movie, but it's
4 Rooms. Yeah.
No. Oh. This one is called. Hold on.
Is this My Best Friend's Birthday or whatever?
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
And it's,
I
I
haven't
guess,
seen that one
apparent
either.
at one point it was like 70 minutes, but then it got lost or something, and only like
Yeah.
30 minutes of it has been able to like be recovered, I
Right, right.
guess. And so
Yeah,
you can watch that. I think you can watch that on like YouTube or something.
probably. Yeah.
I have it on my watch list, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those ones I haven't really like been overly too concerned with trying to go back and watch. I did see the audition footage, I guess. Not audition footage, but they did a several minute scene of um, from Reservoir Dogs where it's Tarantino and Steve Buscemi doing a scene in there, and so that one's interesting little artifact.
Huh.
That one
Interesting.
you can find on YouTube as well. So
I'll have to check
yeah,
that
no,
out.
yeah, yeah, that one's really good. Yeah, I saw the Kill Bill movies in the theater. I saw both of them in the theater. I think I was living in Colorado at the time. Yeah, I was living in Colorado. At least for the first one. I think for both of them. So and at the time I was working for DHL, and there was a mall that I would deliver stuff to, and I actually delivered the prints for one of them. I think the first Kill Bill, and
Okay.
yeah, that was interesting because I used to have to deliver all the because this was back when movie theaters used to show movies on actual film, and so you would have
Yeah.
to deliver the film reels in these large cans that they would then have to splice together and put on these huge platters. So, and I used to work at movie theaters, so I know that too. So it's yeah,
Yeah, I saw Kill Bill was the first Tarantino movie that I ever saw.
oh wow, okay, that's an
Like,
interesting experience.
yeah, so I basically, like, I had heard of, Tarantino. I'd heard of Pulp
Right.
Fiction, but it never was like my thing. Like, I was just always like kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, early this Kill Bill came out when I was in college, and at that point
Okay.
I was kind of just really into like either like mainstream movies or horror movies. And
Right.
so for me, Tarantino felt, I guess, indie, which I know he
Right.
wasn't, but like when
Right.
you don't know shit.
Right.
And so I saw Kill Bill on a date, and I don't even think that I like necessarily like it wasn't that I was against seeing it, but I didn't like know that I wanted to see it.
Right.
And
Right.
so I saw it and I was like, I mean, obviously it was way better than the date went,
Yeah.
but so I got really excited about it, and then I started watching like some of other Tarantino's other stuff. And I'll be real honest, I was not like crazy about most of his stuff. Like Pulp Fiction has since grown on me,
Right.
but at the time it fell into that like that hype thing where like everybody
Mm,
talks it up so much that when you finally watch it you're just like, okay, why? Like
yeah. Right.
and
No.
and
Yeah.
be, I
You
and
and
I
I,
think
you and I have
largely
talked at length about the hype, the negative hype experience. So
exactly. And I feel like I'm very susceptible to the hype experience. Like,
right.
like I everybody hyped up Knives Out. I was like, what's such a big deal about this? Like, it's a mystery movie. Have you not ever watched mystery movies before?
Right.
Like, I mean, I grew up watching them with my mom. So like
Right.
I'm very used to like what you're supposed to look for and like the clues, and so
Right.
it wasn't like it wasn't a bad movie. I just didn't think it was
Right.
great. And
Right.
Lake Mungo, I know you and I have had discussions at length about Lake
Yeah.
Mungo.
Right.
And that was one that everyone just kept telling me, it's so scary, it's so scary. And then when I watched it, I was like, I'm bored.
Right.
I definitely am gonna give Lake Mungo like another shot because I feel like if I get in the right mindset for it and I kind of
Right.
know what I'm expecting, I think I might enjoy it more.
Yeah, I think that's
And that
that's how I am with
definitely
a lot of movies as well. Like especially like something that's been hyped. Like I give it like if I watch it and I'm just kind of like soft on it, then I'm like, okay, unless I hated it, then like if I hated it outright, which is unusual. I don't usually hate movies. But if I was just soft on a movie, then I will go like give it some time, and then I will go back and check it out again. That happened to me with It Follows. Like It Follows, like everybody hyped it up when I was first really getting into horror back in like 2018. It had been like a year since It Follows came out, so everybody's still hyping It Follows. And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. This sounds interesting. It sounds like a cool thing. And I watched it, and I was kind of like, I mean, it's all right, but I mean, it's not super great or whatever. And then I went back a while later and was like, okay, this is actually better than I thought it was. I still don't think it's like super awesome like everybody else does, but it's better than I originally gave it. So,
Yeah. I was that way with The Witch. Because, like, when I
oh,
saw The
that's funny.
Witch, I did not realize, and it was less that it was hyped up, but more about, like, the expectations.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
the trailer expectation.
Oh, the
And I think this
A24
kind of,
trailer problem.
yeah, like, and I think it goes to, like, it also is like a hype. It's a type of hype, as it were.
Yeah,
Like, it makes you think it's going to be one thing, and then it was completely not. Like, it was like the trailer made it look like it was going to be like a period piece Conjuring movie.
right.
And then it was like this like slow burn.
Super slow burn. Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? And I hated it the first time I saw it. I was like, what the hell was this? Like, that's so dumb. And then I gave it another shot. Like, I was able to go see it theatrically for a
Right.
friend's film series that he was doing on, like, Faith and Fear. And so it was, like, all horror movies that had to do with religion.
Right.
And so I got to see it on the big screen again. And because I knew going in what to expect, like, I was into it. But
Yeah.
this kind of like goes back to Kill Bill because like I feel like between volume 1 and volume 2 there was a lot of hype. Like I remember the whole like what's the bride's name and like everybody was
Oh, yeah.
speculating what her name was and like you know and I just remember like that buildup of hype, but it actually worked for this because it was like a part 2.
Right. I think the interesting thing too is that number two is a much slower movie, a much more
Yeah,
like
it's more of a
compared to
western.
yeah, and it's got a lot of slow parts to it. Like the action isn't as intense in the second one. It's more there's more
It's
talking, there's more
there's a lot
build
more
up.
exposition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so which is fine, but it's when you watch the first one and it's like all action and you're just going from beat to beat. And then the second one's just like, all right, well, we're now going to tell you the backstory. We're going to tell you, we're going to ease into this. And, even the climax, the confrontation between her and Bill is not as intense as you might expect it to be, given the nature of everything else that had happened. And then, so it's a much different, slower paced movie in a lot of ways, which works. But it's just one of those things where you're super hyped, and then you're like, "Whoa, wait a minute!" And I haven't heard anybody complain about Kill Bill 2 being worse or anything like that. But it's one of those things where I could see where the hype could be let down because of that. But
Yeah, I will say that I do prefer volume 1 to volume 2,
I
but I do
yeah,
really
and that's
love both movies.
yeah, and that's where I think I hear about it more is that more people enjoy Volume 1 more because of the action, because of the intensity of it all. And that's what most of us visualize when we think about Kill Bill. Every time you see anything about Kill Bill, it's always, the fights between Oren and Vernita. And so you're not seeing, much of the other stuff other than
Yeah,
that.
it's
So
it's
I
left
think that's
vague so
funny.
that you're like
Yeah,
into it and you're into the bride and
exactly.
I think like for me personally also a part of why I enjoy the first one more is the first one is very much like inspired by like Japanese revenge cinema. Like it is
Right.
very very much an homage to like Lady Snowblood and like even uses the same music. Like it
Yeah.
uses songs that are from Lady Snowblood in that. And I prefer Japanese cinema to like the Western revenge, which is like
Right.
I the second one feels somewhere like between like a revenge movie and a spaghetti western, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I think that before he did Hateful Eight, like I feel like Quentin Tarantino was dipping his toes into westerns with
Right.
the second one.
Right. Yeah.
And
I mean, I could see
for
that.
me personally, I enjoy Japanese cinema more than I enjoy westerns, so it was kind of a given.
Right. Right.
But I do think like they have like very different um, beats, and I know that both of us, because we talked about this the last time, we both watched the whole bloody affair,
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
um, so like I really feel like when you watch them together, it hits different.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
I
And
mean,
yeah,
it's
you
not
mentioned,
necessary, but like it was really like I. This is the first time like I've ever gotten emotional watching this movie. Like at the end of this one, I like cried. I was
right.
like when she's talking to Bill, I've never had this reaction before. And I don't know if it's cuz I watched it, all the way through without the break or what, or if I just, because I'm in a different place in my life, like the whole notion of loving somebody so much that you could never expect them to do what Bill did and then know that you have to kill him because your life is never going to like be calm and you have to do
Right.
what's right, and it becomes less about the revenge at that point and more about keeping her daughter safe.
Right.
And it's like heartbreaking, like because she doesn't want to do it, like you can see it, like
Right. Yeah.
Kiddo does not want to kill Bill like anymore, like she realizes what happened, and I feel like the revenge has come to a head, but she knows it has to be done.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that when she gets to that point and she discovers that her daughter is alive, it's, I think leading up to all of that, she was willing to die to get to killing Bill as it was. But then once she finds out that her daughter is alive, then it becomes a whole other level for her that, well, now she, one, can't die. She needs to make sure she kills Bill. And, despite, her love for him and despite his, supposed love for her, that, you know, because of her daughter being there, that she needs to now take her away and make sure that Bill will no longer, infect her life. So,
Yeah, it's just like I just it like I said, it hit for me totally different this
yeah,
time, and the relationship, and it's just a really interesting dynamic. And the whole bloody affair, I think overall does not really add much. Like I
right.
don't like I'm glad I own
No,
it,
yeah, yeah,
but it's not, I didn't like, with the exception of one scene that felt kind of silly, there isn't really anything added that I was like, "Oh, that's a new thing. Oh, oh, I wish that had been
exactly.
in the original."
And most of the additions
And
are in Kill Bill Volume 1 as well. So it's like, they add a little bit of animation stuff, and then they added in, they changed it so that it doesn't go to black and white during the crazy 88 scene. And, there's a couple of other smaller little things, but like it really does not add enough to be consequential. It's more of just added gore
yeah.
to the most part. It's like it's basically just one of those unrated director's cuts where you get to see more gore, and that's fine, but it really doesn't add anything story wise. So if you are, considering the whole bloody affair, whatever, sure, it's not bad to own, but it really doesn't own it. It doesn't really add anything to the overall story.
Yeah, you're not, if you don't, feel comfortable buying a bootleg, or you
Yeah,
can't get to the New
exactly.
Beverly when he's showing it. I do feel that it's not really, the end of the world.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
if you watch the two and just kind of put them together, it's fine.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's yeah, and the one scene that does get added into um volume 2, which is a scene with Bill and Kiddo uh, walking around. I'm assuming China, some Chinese village of some
Yeah, it's
sort.
wherever it's like wherever Pai Mei lives.
Right. And they are confronted by some ruffians, I guess we should say. Um Somebody gunning for Bill, and Bill
Isn't
quickly
one of them
dispatches them.
played by the RZA?
I'm not positive who that is. Um
I thought that that was RZA, and I know he does like soundtrack stuff for
right.
Kill
He there
Bill.
was Yeah. I think there was also like because he also had he had a movie come out around the same time, The Man with the Iron Fists, and
Oh,
there was
that's
supposed to
right.
be some connection between these two movies, and I don't know if this. I mean, because obviously this character dies in this one. Spoilers.
Yeah.
But I don't care. My podcast is all spoilers. Uh, but yeah, it's so I don't think the characters the connection, but I think there was supposed to be some kind of connection to them, but whatever was got cut for whatever reasons, and so I think this is part of that scene. Uh,
Got it.
but yeah, so I mean it, but again, it doesn't really add much to it. It's like a little side bit that doesn't add any depth or anything to the overall story. So not having it in there, you just watch the two movies, it's perfectly great on their own like
I
that
mean, I
without having
like
the
that it shows the
I,
dynamic, the relationship
yeah,
dynamic between Beatrix and Bill,
right,
because it does add like a little bit more of like how she's kind of enamored by him.
right, yeah,
But I also don't think like I think that the scene that's in the movie where they're sitting by the fire and he's telling the story of the monk, I think that does a good enough job.
right. I do. It's funny too because that is another addition to the movie, the whole bloody affair, is that instead of him just telling the story, that in the whole bloody affair we get a version that's intercut with older uh kung fu movie footage that's supposed to be Pai Mei's life, from Pai Mei's life. So it's a that was an interesting little bit.
I do
But
not remember seeing that, but I think I was just
maybe
not paying attention.
okay.
I or either that or my bootleg is not good. Who knows? I'll have to like
There are
check.
some, yeah, because I looked it up when I was looking it up, the differences and stuff. There are some things that were added, some things that were different. Like there's definitely different bootleg versions. Uh, Mine had most of the correct changes like that. There was one thing where at the end of Kill Bill Volume One that Bill is talking to Sophie and he mentions does she know about the baby? And that is supposed to be cut from the whole bloody affair, that because you're not supposed to, the audience isn't even supposed to know about it for that part of it.
Mm.
But mine still has that part, but then it also has everything else that was actually supposed to be added into it. So
Yeah, now I
whoever
want to go
created
back and
this version.
rewatch this again.
Yeah,
I mean,
so it's
I have too many movies to
oh my
watch to be
god.
able to revisit this again so soon, but
Yeah.
someday.
Yeah, it'll be a while because I've decided I'm going to be doing other directors now, and other director series now, yeah, on the podcast. So
Nice.
it'll be a while before I get to those. But yeah, no, I going back and watching these, I hadn't seen any Tarantino movies in a few years, and going back and watching these it was fun. It's it's definitely different. Like when you take out, every time you see one of his movies for the first time, it's an experience um, that, to me anyway, it's a very fun experience. I enjoy watching his movies, but once you rewatch them, it's they're different every time. I feel like I get a little something new out of them each time. Um,
Yeah, for
and,
sure.
and watching it, at least especially this way with the whole bloody affair, it was like, yeah, like we said, it wasn't a completely new experience, but it was different enough that, especially watching it, sitting down and just watching it as a whole rather than breaking it up. And because I mean, I'm sure most people will end up watching one, and then when they want to watch the second one, they'll typically not watch it back to back. They'll,
Yeah,
you know,
I almost never do, if I'm going to
right.
be honest. And
And I find
I
most
watch.
people just end up watching number one more than anything else.
Yep,
So
that's me. I watch
yeah,
one fairly often, and then I'm just like, I don't really need to watch two. I know what happens.
right, right. Because again, I think number two is the much slower paced. It's more of the backstory, the exposition, very exposition heavy. Um, and it's not as fast paced and fun as the first one is. Uh, so I think that's where number one just has the edge. So
Yeah. I also like, in terms of the villains, I like Oren more than I like any of the other ones.
right,
Like,
yeah,
generally speaking, and I think, again, that goes just to my love of, like, Japanese cinema in general, is that I love stuff with Yakuza. I love, samurai stuff. Like, any of that kind of thing is always going to win me over more.
right, yeah,
And frankly, I find, like, as cool as the aesthetic is of Elle Driver, I find her character to actually be kind of annoying.
oh yeah,
Like, I'm just like, oh my god, like, what is your problem? Like,
right,
you are just so bitchy.
yeah. Well, and I think it's meant to be played that way. Of course, she's meant to feel like she's been passed over for kiddo, and it's because she wanted to be Bill's number one, and she wasn't. She didn't get a sword of her own, like almost everybody else did, but she didn't get one, and that stuck in her craw. So,
Well, actually, I think technically only Bud and Beatrix got swords, and
well,
Beatrix only got a sword because she went to Hattori Hanzo after the fact.
well, I think Oren got one as well. So,
No, she does not have a Hattori Hanzo.
hmm,
And she calls Beatrix a liar because she says
maybe
she
yeah.
has one.
And something I had read said that he'd gotten one for Oren, but yeah, I guess not. Yeah. Um, but I find it interesting. Something I read was funny about this was that when they were casting, his original choice for Bill was Warren Beatty, of all people, and it was a
Ugh.
much different. Yeah, same. I'm not a Warren Beatty fan. Uh, the original depiction, there was like the whole martial arts aspect of this was much less, if not at like not there at all. That Warren Beatty's version would have been more of a suave James Bond type of character
I'm
and
so glad
a
that that
spy
did not
character.
work out.
No, yeah, exactly. Like
That,
it's
to
the
me, that movie would
it
not have worked.
would have been a much different, much I don't know, just not the same fun level of movie that it became, because I think that once he, and apparently Warren Beatty was the one who suggested um uh, oh my god, I'm completely blanking on his name.
David Carradine.
David Carradine, yes, thank you. Um that he he suggested David Carradine for the role, and then once he got the role, that's when Tarantino then redid the whole script to accommodate for that difference in character and more towards David Carradine's old kung fu role. And so which made it, I think that it made it a much better movie in that way. So because
I agree.
it would have
I
been so
definitely
weird.
would. I would not have liked it as much if it had just been like a typical kind of run of the mill spy movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I think that would have, like, been, kind of already done. I mean, it would have felt like a lower key Mission Impossible movie,
Right, yeah.
and I think that just wouldn't have worked.
No, not at all. I would have had a much harder time. I probably would like these movies less if Warren Beatty were in the role, just because of that.
Yeah,
Not that
I
I'm a
think
big
I
David
don't.
Carradine fan either, but I think he does a good enough job, and he has that past connection through the Kung Fu TV series that he was in that elevates it to a different level than it would have been with Warren Beatty.
Yeah, well, and he brings like a different vibe to it. He brings
Yeah,
that like that Zen kind of vibe, which makes him kind of scarier
yeah,
because he's so calm.
exactly. Well, he's
And
calm and he's playful a lot of the time too. So it's an interesting, like, I couldn't
yeah,
see Warren Beatty pulling something like that off in that way, that calm and playful.
he just doesn't have the right vibe. Like I don't know
No,
how to describe
exactly.
it other than that. Like it's
Yeah, exactly.
you
It's a
know,
vibe. Yeah.
I don't hate Warren Beatty. I think like for some of the roles that I've seen him in, he was fine. Like he does a great job as Clyde and Bonnie and Clyde, and he's fun in Dick Tracy. And I just think that like overall though, like he's not who I would. He doesn't have the. It's I can't even describe it. It's like something my mom used to say is like my mom used to say like when she would watch actors like, "Oh, he just looks really competent."
Right.
Like through life, like you could tell he this like he just looks confident. And I feel like Warren Beatty doesn't have that, especially for this role.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I personally have never liked anything that Warren Beatty's been in. I can't even remember having actually seen him in very many movies, because I kind of avoid them. And
You haven't seen Bonnie and Clyde?
I have not. No, I
You
believe
should
I've
check
seen
that
Dick Tracy
one out.
once, but yeah, it's
Bonnie and
outside of.
Clyde is a really well done movie. Like
Yeah,
I would suggest that one because that's probably, in my opinion, and I like you, I haven't seen a ton of his stuff,
right,
but I would say that that is probably definitely one of his best works.
right. Yeah, yeah. Eventually, I'll check it out. I have so many other things to watch. It's ridiculous. Um,
I'm with
but
you. Like my watch list is like 600 movies long.
oh, it's ridiculous between just the Blu-rays I have that I haven't watched, and then everything on every streaming service that I want to watch.
Oh,
It's too
if I
much.
track down how many Blu-rays I own that I haven't watched or ever seen, oh, oh. But
Yeah,
it's like I always say, and my husband agrees, what's the point of a library if you've read every book?
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
No,
so
yeah, yeah. Eventually, at some point, I'll be like, oh yeah, I've got that movie. Let me watch that. But yeah,
exactly.
it's a, but yeah. I like this movie. I don't I yeah, I just don't think Warren Beatty fits in it at all. And but I'm glad that the cast overall seems to be well done. Regardless of whether I like, the character of Elle Driver, I think that Daryl Hannah, plays her well, and makes you
She
hate her.
definitely does go over the top with her.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is a very over the top movie. So
Yeah, and like when she tells Beatrix that she killed Paime, I'm like, I just every time she's like, I killed your master. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, really? Really? You deserve to be hit just for like saying it in that manner. Get her, Beatrix.
Right. Yeah. No, oh my god. Yeah, no, it's 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 really fun. I do I think that he has talked about possibly doing a Kill Bill Volume 3 so that we get a continuation now that the daughters are older, the daughter of Vernita Green and Kiddo. And so we would get a possibility of a Vernita Green's daughter coming back and trying for revenge, and something happening between the daughters, which I think would be fun. I don't think it's going to happen. He's talked at length about only doing 10 movies, and he's only got one more left. And
Yeah,
I
and
don't think he's
he
going to
just
make that
doesn't
Kill Bill
strike
Volume 3.
me. He doesn't strike me as the type also that he would ever revisit a property.
I think that he will in writing. I think
Yeah,
that
that's what I mean
he
though. Like
yeah,
filmmaking wise, I don't think he
yeah,
would ever. It just doesn't like because every one of his movies is so different.
yeah,
It just
exactly.
doesn't feel like he would ever go back. Like it because I think for him, he would view it, and I don't know Quentin Tarantino, but it just strikes me that he would feel it as going backwards in his
Right.
filmmaking, not moving forward.
I think that the only way he would do it is that he found a genre that he wanted to do it in that would work for him. Like say he wanted to do it in a spy movie style, then that would be his end for it. And I think because he hasn't really made a spy movie, um, that he could do something in that style, or more like a horror movie or something like that. But I think that, yeah, unless he
I
finds an
really
end
hope
for
that he
that.
does a horror movie.
Oh yeah, no, I like that's the
Like
one
I know there's been
genre that I would
discussion
love
of
to
him
see with
doing
him.
like I know he's talked about doing like a Star Trek movie and all
Oh
that, but
yeah,
I'm like, dude, I want you to do something original. Like I don't want you to do
yeah,
somebody else's property. I feel like anything he would do with somebody else's property would just get watered down.
right, yeah,
And I like
especially
his
something like Star
style would
Trek.
get watered down because like especially with something like Star Trek.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's so much that they like stick to and there's theme like and I feel like it would be like watered down Quentin Tarantino. And if it is truly going to be his last movie, I would hate for it to be something that isn't 100% him.
yeah. I want something that's going to be wholly original, something that he he is absolutely passionate about doing, and will like put his everything into to make his last movie, his best movie. So I'd rather see him do something like that rather than
Exactly.
doing something like Star Trek or something.
N-
Not that I'm against seeing him do
no,
something
in terms
Star
of
Trek
Kill
wise,
Bill,
but yeah.
like in terms I think of like Kill Bill Volume 3, I would love to see it come out as like a comic book or a manga.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I could see that.
Like and have him
Like
write it. Like but
he
like
has co-written a comic book sequel of sorts to Django Unchained. He did a Django Zorro team up comic book a few years after Django Unchained.
oh, interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah, and he's done an adaptation of Django Unchained also as a comic book that has additional scenes that were not in the movie.
Oh wow. I
Yeah,
literally had no idea. I knew he had done the like I knew he had done like the but I didn't realize he had done some other stuff like that. Yeah, I would love to see him, if he was going to revisit some of his franchises, doing it, via either comic book or novel or like
right.
I think that would be a kind of cool way to do it.
Yeah, no, he's dipped his toe into book writing, novel writing, because he did the novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's done a couple of comic book stuff, so it would be interesting to see him keep going down those roads. And I think that's probably where he's leaning towards now, is he's enjoying just writing and putting things out there that way. So I think that he'll probably find something to do for his 10th movie, and I think after that he'll just go into writing. And who knows? I mean, maybe he'll write and produce other movies that other people will direct for him. You know, he'll go that direction rather than
Exactly. I
continuing
and
his
I could
own
I could see
directing.
that happening. He did that for a while. I feel like he did that for a while. Like, wasn't it in the like early 2000s where there was like a ton of like Quentin Tarantino presents
Yeah,
type
yeah,
movies?
Yeah, yeah, he did that. He um, re-released Switchblade Sisters under that, and there were a few like foreign films that he was bringing to the U.S. and a couple of very low budget independent things that he was producing. So he's done it
Yeah, he
before, and I think that
produced he produced Hero with Jet Li.
yeah. So I think he'll lean into that a little bit more after that point. Maybe just help guide new filmmakers. Hopefully.
Yeah. I would like to see that happen. I feel like he's got a lot of talent, and I don't want to see him just like kind of like hole up in a his house and go Howard Hughes on
Right.
everyone.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's I I hope that that's what the case will be, is that he will just move towards uh that kind of work, and still be involved in film as something other than just programming at New Beverly and stuff, which I mean is fine as well. But you know I think that it would be a great loss to film to have him just fully retire. And I mean, but that's his own choice if that's what he wants to do. But hopefully that won't be the case.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. Do we have anything else that really want to talk about? I mean,
I feel like I would love to touch on the soundtrack for these
oh
movies
yes,
because
definitely.
I think they are banging. Like I still on the regular listen to them, and that's one thing I love about even the Tarantino movies that I don't love. I still love their soundtracks,
Oh
and
yeah.
like he just knows how to make a soundtrack or put together a soundtrack, and this one was no exception. Like I still listen to this soundtrack a lot, a lot. Like my husband is like, "Okay, enough with the Tarantino playlist. We're done."
Yeah, I agree. I think the music is great. I think that's one of the better things about him. He's one of those directors that really knows how to meld the music to the visuals, and he knows how to uh, make a good soundtrack. I tend to not listen to them too much outside of the movies. I do on occasion, whenever I'm really feeling in that mood. But I feel like the music complements the visuals so much that it's hard to take the music. It's hard to listen to the music outside of the movie without feeling like there's something missing. And there's also where I will listen to, or there's some songs that I just don't care for outside of the movie, and they're fine. They're just not something that is something I want to listen to. But I think they work really well in the movie. I think they complement the scenes so well that they're great for that. Just outside of the movie, I don't care. So
I'm definitely like a soundtrack lover. I love the feeling you get when you hear the song and it like pulls you back into the movie even when you're not watching it. I think that's why
right,
I like listening to them outside of, you know, that way.
right.
But
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely there's just definitely a few songs, you know, and not just a handful. I have a whole Tarantino playlist as well that has a lot of good stuff on it that I can listen to, along with like bits of the dialogue from the soundtracks as well, which is always fun to add in. But and that's what I think is great about his soundtracks too, is that not only are they soundtracks that include the music, but they also have dialogue bits that are fun little pieces of the movie to add along with it. So you're getting, not only when you're watching the movie, you're getting this experience that's the music is melded with it, but then when you listen to the soundtrack, you're also getting bits of the movie with it as well. And so you're getting kind of a blending of the two in each format, which is fun.
yeah. I agree. I my Tarantino soundtrack is even named after a line from Death Proof, and it's called Chartreuse, the only alcohol so good they named a color after it. And I recently rewatched that for my podcast, and I didn't realize like how much I liked it until recently. So
Hmm, that's funny.
it's one that I definitely enjoy. And are you including that on this your this like Tarantino, or is it are you
Death
doing the
Proof?
Grindhouses? Yeah, are you doing the Grindhouse movies separately since Robert Rodriguez directed Planet Terror technically?
No, I did an episode on the whole Grindhouse experience for this series. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
So we talk about Planet Terror, and we talk about Death Proof. Yeah. They I you can't when I did it, I wanted to make sure that I added it because it's a whole experience. Grindhouse is a whole experience that I wanted to talk about more than just Death Proof, the movie. I mean, Death Proof obviously is the focus, but you kind of have to talk about the whole experience.
Yeah, they
So
do intertwine, and
they do.
it is it is hard to talk about one and not the other. I mean, we found that out when we did ours, and so
Exactly.
someday we're going to do Planet Terror on Final Girls Feast, and I really am trying so hard to get Robert Rodriguez to come talk to us because he's a
Oh
big
yeah.
foodie. I mean,
Yeah.
he did like cooking videos on several of
Yeah.
his
10
DVD
minute cooking
releases.
schools. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And
Yep.
so I would love to talk to him about it.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Luckily I got to finally be on an episode. The witch episode, in fact, that we already mentioned earlier. So
Exactly.
that was a fun episode. I hopefully can come back and join you guys for another episode. I had a great time.
Yeah, we will definitely have to have you come on and talk about something. I don't, honestly, like we usually try to have a schedule and
Right.
then we just never do it. I'll
Oh, I'm
like
guilty
plan
of
it
that
like
myself.
I'll plan like the whole year out and I'll be like, okay, these are the movies we're gonna do each month. These are what I want, and then something will come out or something will get like dropped on Shutter,
Right.
or I'm like, oh, I want to do this one instead, or oh, I don't really feel like watching this movie and now, and
Yeah.
so it rarely. So that's why I'm always like, so who wants to be a guest and what movie do you want to talk about? Because
Right.
clearly this is not.
Yeah. I'm finding out that podcasting, as much fun as it is, and I knew it going into it that it was going to be difficult. My problem has been sitting down and editing, going back and re-listening and having to cut out, especially all of my ums and everything that because I do that more than anybody. That so it's just like, oh god, I gotta edit that out again. Oh,
Just
another
leave
one.
it
Oh,
in.
another one.
You know what you
I
do is
know.
I mean, I don't do our editing. Carrie does our editing, and I'm so grateful for that because A, I don't know how to
Lucky.
do it, but
Right.
B, I also hate the sound of my own voice. So I never listen to, like, I never go back and listen to my episodes, like, ever. And when my husband tries to listen to them, he has to do it when I'm not in the room because I just get so annoyed with myself. I'm like, do I really sound like that? You married that? You love that? Ooh, okay.
Yeah. To be fair, I
I
did not
question your
listen to
judgment.
yeah, to be fair, I did not listen to the episode that I was on of your guys's. I'm I'm also the same way. Like I'm not a fan of my voice. I don't think many people are fans of their voices, just because it doesn't sound the same recorded as it does in our own heads. Uh,
Yeah, I agree. I'm like, I sound way cooler when I'm when I'm saying things, and then I hear myself and I'm like, I sound like a dork.
oh, I'm a dork every time. I just think my voice is in my head. My voice is much deeper than it is whenever I hear it on recorded. I'm like, I have a much higher pitched voice than I thought I did. So
I feel the same way.
So I'm like, oh,
Uh,
but I'm the one who has to edit it. So it's like, okay, so this is why I haven't had an episode out for like a month, between, like all of June. I didn't have an episode out. So I've just like, I gotta sit down, I gotta edit, and
yeah,
it's good though.
we've definitely found that like and it never happens intentionally, but by like March or April when spring break is happening and whatnot, we typically just go MIA. Like we plan to do stuff and then we just end up taking like a month long hiatus. And
Right.
I'm like, Carrie, we should really just plan to do this next year because like the last 2 years we've done it. So we should probably just like plan for it.
Right.
And because she's got 4 kids, so they do a lot of
Yeah.
spring break stuff. And honestly, we just like we burn out a little bit, and we need like
Oh yeah.
like time. And because of how we do ours, like writing the food notes makes like
Oh
episodes
man.
take like I can watch a movie, like a 2 hour movie takes me 4 to 5 hours because I have to pause it, I have to write stuff down, I have to like take notes, I have to rewind, I have to like, it's just
No, being
sometimes
as
it's a
specific
lot.
as you guys are, that is crazy. Like I got your notes for the episode we did, and I was like, wow. I was like,
Yeah.
I, as everybody, hopefully everybody understands that when I do my episodes, I don't do very many notes. I kind of just, I like to play off of the things that my guests say, and because that leads to interesting, good conversations. Sometimes it leads to asides, and then we come back. But that's what I enjoy the most is like the kind of, I like to have a conversation. So rather than for my show, rather than focusing on like keeping string of notes, I like to throw out tidbits here and there, information that'll lead to maybe some good conversation, like the Warren Beatty bit and everything that but otherwise, like I really don't like, and sometimes I'm a little underprepared, which is never good, but you
Yeah,
know
I feel like for me, and I don't judge the people who do it, but like when I'm listening, I don't love when podcasts, any movie podcast will like basically give you like the entire synopsis of the
oh
movie.
god, no, I hate that. Yeah.
And like I'm like I just watched the movie. Like now for us,
Yeah.
we talk about all the food, so it kind of by proxy sort of happens,
Right.
but we're
But you
literally
guys are
only
picking
talking
out.
about the food.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you guys are picking up very like that was what was interesting, was like while watching The Witch and getting ready for it, I was like, okay, I was noticing the food and stuff, but you guys were like, you guys have picked up stuff that I didn't even catch because I'm not looking for that. I'm typically when I'm watching a movie, I'm just watching a movie to enjoy the movie. I don't I don't like zero in on stuff like that. So I think that's interesting. You guys have gotten a niche that I don't think anybody else is doing. And so I think that's what
I hope not
makes your
because I
yeah,
built a brand around this.
yeah, yeah. See, my show just ends up being like every other stupid horror show or whatever horror podcast. But I like
Well,
to
what I
think that mine's
appreciate about your show is because you do creepy and geeky, you're
yeah,
not stuck with horror movies always.
no,
And that's like
exactly.
something that Carrie and I kind of, struggle with occasionally is like,
Right,
we don't necessarily like we want to talk about the food of another movie
right,
or, we want to like really talk about a different one. And so like, we've kind of walked the line like we did a couple of Studio Ghibli movies. We did Spirited
right,
Away and Kiki's Delivery Service, which we dubbed them as horror adjacent because they dealt with like ghosts and witches.
right,
So we were like, well, technically those are horror elements. It works. But
right.
we've discussed having like a month where we just do movies we want to do, and it's
Yeah,
not necessarily horror, but we also at the same time don't want to venture too far off of our niche because that's
right.
like this is what we do. So
Yeah. No,
I'm
I
just
think that's
happy that oh, go ahead.
no, I was just saying I think that you guys have found a good avenue for that, and that what you do is interesting in like in that way of trying to find a topic that, yes, while narrow and makes it sometimes difficult, I think is interesting in a way that nobody else is doing. So
Well, I appreciate hearing that. I'm
yeah,
blushing a little bit right now. I'm like, oh gosh. Yeah, and it's funny because when we first started the podcast, we started, obviously during COVID, and it was 2 years
yeah,
ago. And both of us were like, oh, well, there's like, like only so many food horror movies. Because initially that was what we were going to talk about. And
right,
then we started realizing just like how much food was in just like regular horror movies. And so that
right,
like opened it up a lot for us because we were like, oh, well, we can like, now we can talk about, movies that are not necessarily food centric, but just have food in them.
right. Yeah,
Kind of like our
no,
latest episode on, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Who knew?
that's funny. Yeah, no, it's like with mine, like I originally, mine started out as I was going to, the original idea was my daughter and I were going to watch movies and we were going to talk about them. That was the initial idea because she hadn't watched a lot of horror movies. And so I was going to be introducing horror movies to her and we would talk about them on that way. Then my son joined in, especially after we all moved into the same house together. And then that made it a little bit easier. But then, so then that expanded it in a way. We were still basically doing the same thing. I was trying to show them movies, trying to do themes and stuff. And then they both got really busy with work and school, and my son has a new baby and everything. So then that complicated things. And then so I was like, well, I always wanted to have guests anyway. So let me start, trying to grab guests. And then it morphed and changed into what it's now become as more of a double feature podcast, and which I'm actually having a lot of fun with, because it's fun to try, and it's something that I was basically doing with the kids before was try to come up with interesting double features to watch that complement each other, and now I'm just expanding it out to having guests, and I've been getting some really fun guests, and trying all these different movie things, and now I'm working in this director's series that I'm doing. So it's changed into something
So who's
slightly different than I
next?
original. So the director who's next will be Kevin Smith. So that'll
Cool.
that'll be fun. So
Yeah.
I think you and I have already locked
Hell
down
yeah.
two of the horror movies, which is Tusk and Yoga Hosers, which I
Oh,
have
I'm
not
so
seen either
excited to
one of
talk
those
about
still.
Yoga Hosers. Oh, Yoga Hosers is so fun.
That's
I
funny.
won't say it's good because it's
Yeah.
objectively in the pantheon of good movies. I don't think it's like it's not a Midsummer or a Get Out or
Yeah.
something like that. But it is so much fun. Like
Right.
I think this movie is such a blast. I can't wait to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I also are you going to watch do you have a copy of Red State?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I have a
Okay,
copy
good.
of every one of his movies. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. A few years ago, when I'd lost my job, and uh, I used to be a big Funko Pop collector, and so I had my collection at that time had been slimmed down quite a bit, but what I had left were a bunch of the really high priced items that I had, and so I started selling all those off, and I started um, using that money to buy movies and books and stuff like that that I'd been wanting for a long time. And so I started building my Kevin Smith collection, which I had the movies before on DVD years ago, and then got rid of them and just hadn't rebuilt it. And so now I'm going to get everything on Blu-ray. So, which was great, except for that some of them had gone out of print, such as Dogma and Red State, and some of the others had weirdly gone out of print literally like right at the time I was about to grab them. uh, Both Jersey Girl and what's the other one, Not
Is it
sure.
Chasing Amy?
No, I got Chasing Amy pretty easily. Most of them I got pretty easily. I'm not sure what the other one was, but Dogma, Red State, and Jersey Girl for sure were all out of print at the time, and Dogma especially was Dogma had been out of print for a long time, and I had to go back and get. I had to go to eBay, of course, and the luckily got a copy for only $80.
Oh,
So
only.
only $80. Yeah, no, because it varies wildly, and it sometimes is over $100. So I was
Oh,
like,
the
okay, I'm
Blu-ray
gonna,
right now on the Dogma Blu-ray right now on Amazon is $200.
yeah. Well, and
That's
that's the thing too, is like,
insane.
so some people are selling it on eBay, but like the version, like I'm very particular that when I'm buying a Blu-ray or something like that, that I want somebody to have actual pictures of it, not just the picture
Like,
of
yeah,
the
the
box
poster
art.
art.
So if I see just poster art, no, I'm not buying from you. So I specifically waited until like, or looked through until I found one that was the cheapest I was willing to pay, or the most I was willing to pay for one that actually showed that they had the disc. And so thankfully I got it. It was only $80, but then both Red State and Jersey Girl both cost me $40 each. And
Wow.
yeah, but I was just like, I need to get all these. I don't know when they're going to come back into print. And Jersey Girl eventually came right back into print, like not too long afterwards. So I was like, oh, crap. But I knew that Dogma and Red State were not going to be coming back into print. So,
Yeah.
uh, because those unfortunately were owned by Weinstein's directly. And so they,
I don't think Red State was. From what
Red
I
State,
understand,
okay, so Dogma was, but Red State was a different scenario because Red State was,
it was like independently owned by like a small production company or something, right?
yeah, yeah, and so it's very, yeah, it's also, but it's also mired in weird rights issues. So it's both of
Weird.
those are just really difficult to get now, and so I'm glad I got my versions. Uh, I have his entire collection on Blu-ray now, and I did the same thing with Tarantino's. I got his collection. I ended up finding a copy of the Tarantino 20th anniversary collection on
Oh,
eBay for a
nice.
decent price. Yeah, that wasn't too banged up. So it's yeah, it's actually in fairly good condition considering. So I was happy about that, and I didn't pay like a huge amount for it. So I'm glad on that one too. But yeah, I
That's
but
always a
yeah,
win.
Kevin Smith's movies will be the next one, and then I'm uh, uh, also going to probably be doing a John Carpenter
Nice.
series, and a series on M Night Shyamalan. So, so those
Less
will be.
nice.
His movies are fun. You just, yeah.
I think I've liked one.
Oh wow, which one was that?
I like Sixth Sense.
Oh
Like
yeah, I mean
I
everybody
haven't
likes
really
Sixth
been a
Sense.
I haven't really been a fan of much else.
Yeah, I mean I understand that.
Signs made me so angry. I was like, this is so dumb. Like that was like one of those like moments where I was like, I want to flip the coffee table because this is so dumb. And
That's funny.
Lady or the Village. I literally spent
Well,
the whole movie thinking that he had a really shit costumer
right.
and then realized at the end that that was not the case. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh. Mm.
Yeah.
Like, I was so annoyed. I was like, really?
Well, The
What the
Village is
fuck?
one that I am going to be talking about, so I don't want to get
Go
into it
too
just
far in
yet,
depth,
but
but
yeah.
yeah. I just was like so annoyed. And
Yeah,
that's generally how I feel about M. Night Shyamalan twists. Is
that's funny.
they all just
I
make
like
me
the
go,
twists.
I like when a movie has a twist. I don't like his twists. Like, I'm always like, oh, that's it? That was the twist? Oh. Hmm. Like, and I think what it boils down to for me is just like Sixth Sense was so unexpected that
Yeah,
like the rest of them, and it was such a good twist that
right.
the rest of them have just like paled in comparison. And so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I understand that. That's funny. All right. Um,
It's kind of like with Kill Bill and Quentin Tarantino for me because you know, they like I saw Kill Bill first. Every movie has to hold up to Kill Bill for me, and they
right.
never do. They never do. I never get that same. The thing is I never get that same feeling, and I think that that's because Kill Bill was my first, and
Yeah.
so you know, it was like at the time for me like nothing I had ever seen,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
in my mind, I've built up this like, Kill Bill is the perfect Tarantino movie. And so every other one, while good, just don't live up to that.
Right. That's how I am with Army of Darkness, with the whole Evil Dead series. Like Army of Darkness is the first one I saw of the Evil Dead series, and so that one will always, even though I know it's not as good as Evil Dead 2, and I know Evil Dead 2 is technically the better movie, I
Oh,
still Army of
see,
Darkness
hard.
just holds such a big place in my heart that I will always consider it the better movie.
Army
So,
of Darkness was the first one I saw also, but I
right.
still hold that the first movie is the best. Like, I don't even
Uh,
like Evil Dead 2. Like, I am
oh,
like I
wow.
don't like it. Yeah, no, but I don't like comedy, and that one is trying
Oh,
too hard
true.
to be like it tries to in my opinion it tries too hard to be funny, whereas the original one is funny because it wasn't really trying to be.
Yeah.
Like it was trying to be a serious movie, and so that's where the humor lies for me.
Right.
So I'm very much a Evil Dead OG fan. Like
Yeah, I like the comedy. So yeah, I'm much more of the Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2, Ash versus Evil Dead run of things. I like the first Evil Dead, but yeah, for me it's a little too serious compared to the other ones. And I think they accomplish better later. So, but we had this discussion on Twitter recently about horror comedies.
I'm very
Comedies in general.
outspoken.
Yeah.
I'm very outspoken about my general dislike of comedies
Yeah, I don't understand how you cannot enjoy fun. It's just weird.
because I find fun in other genres. I think my
Man.
biggest problem with comedy in general is just that it doesn't have a lot of rewatch value for me. Like
Mm,
most times, jokes are not funny the second time. And so it's like it's funny once, but unless it's super funny, it's not funny again.
right.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I'm just a miserable person who doesn't like to be humored, but
I think
I
that
don't
could
know.
be the case.
It could be. I could just be a grouchy, horror loving person who just doesn't want to laugh.
I think that's probably the case. You're just immune to fun,
I'm immune to laughter.
immune to laughter. Although, hey, we've had a good time. We've had some laughs on this episode so far, so that's good. Not completely
Exactly.
immune to it.
I'm not completely immune to humor. I don't
Exactly.
know. Maybe it's because I live with a husband who tells dad jokes all day, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
if I hear another joke, I'm just gonna like flip a table.
That that could be it. Yeah. 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 Matthew seems to be full of dad jokiness that's can be.
Oh, you don't even know. You just
Yeah.
don't even know. You think you get it. You think you get it in Discord.
No,
But
yeah.
no. But no. I lived this life and
Oh yeah.
it's really lucky for him that he's good looking. And he's very sweet because if it was just solely based on his humor, our
He
marriage would
wouldn't
not
have a
work.
chance.
You know. He played on our first date. He picked me up. And I know we're trying to wrap up, but this is a funny story. So our first date, he picks me up, and I'm already like annoyed by him because he was later. Well, he wasn't really late, but he never set a time. So I was hangry.
Right.
Like I was very hangry. It's like 8 p.m. and I was like, where the hell is my date? I want dinner. Um and it was because he was working out and I was like, "Oh my god, this guy's like one of those. Is he like a bro? Like, no, this is
Right.
not going to work." But I'm getting my free meal, damn it. I put makeup on, so I'm getting a free damned meal. And he picks me up and, on the way to dinner, he has the radio on and he listens to stand-up comedy. And I'm like, cuz he thought that for whatever reason that was like a, you know, everybody likes comedy kind of thing. Like,
Right.
like he's like it's like not, something that people dislike, and I'm just sitting there in silence, like annoyed. And little did he know. And it was a very mediocre first date until him driving me home and we talked about horror movies, and then it was like, oh, we actually do have a lot in common. Let's do this again. But
He almost ruined
he
it.
he almost blew it. I mean, to be fair, I did say that if he drank white wine on our date, he was a pussy. So
Oh, wow.
it was a very aggressive date until he got me fed. And
Uh,
he's never let me get hungry again. It's one of those things where if I start getting hangry, throw the chips at me and run.
right. Right. And just throws food. Here, have this.
I'll talk to you in an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
That's
much.
hilarious. Oh man, that's great. All right. Well, yeah, I've had a great time talking Kill Bill and everything else with you. Uh but I'm glad we were able to get this re-recorded, and hopefully this will stay again, because if this fails for a second time, I will just chuck it.
Oh, you can't do that. I
No,
will make
no.
it happen.
We will
Just
make
don't
it
fuck it
happen
up.
again, but no, yeah, exactly. Hey, what wasn't my fault last time? That was totally computer error. Like I not my fault at all. But yeah, no, it should be good.
Yeah, you will never
So
hear all of the good juicy gossip we had.
yeah.
I don't think we
Yeah.
actually had good juicy
I don't think
gossip,
we
but
yeah, no,
it's fun to tease people and make them think that we had tea that we were sharing and spilling, and now they'll never know.
exactly. Although if this one makes it, they'll know.
Well, we didn't drop the same tea this time.
Exactly. Yeah, I know I don't even remember what we talked about last time, but it was definitely not all of this. So
Yeah, no,
it was definitely other stuff.
I think we had a half an hour tangent about found footage horror. So
Ah, yes. This
sorry
time
for
we just had a
y'all.
half.
You guys
Yeah,
missed
this
that.
time we just had a half hour of podcast talk.
Exactly.
Every time it's a different thing. Oh man. All right. Well, do you want to plug anything you got
Yeah,
going
just
on?
give me I'm all over. The 100 horror movie challenge is starting soon, so you
Oh
are
yeah.
not going to want to miss that. That starts August 1st. And so we are less than a month away from the Challenge of Doom. Every
Yeah.
year I'm like, why do I do this? And then every year I'm like, I'm so excited for this. It's like
I tried it
vacation.
last year. I tried it last year, only got about halfway, and I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that again. That was tough for me. So
You got to do it. You got to just
we'll
dive in
see.
and do
I'm
it.
here's the thing. I'll probably be watching horror movies during those months. I will go ahead and use the hashtag. I'm not going to overly try to do things, but we'll see how far I get.
Well, I will encourage you and I will get it to
Hey,
happen.
I
I
did
told my
better than your
husband the same
husband
thing.
did. So
Yeah, that's true. I was like, how did my husband, someone who literally lives in my home, not even watch half of the movies that I did? I'm like,
exactly.
that's sad. But it's
It is
also
sad.
because he and I, he works during the day and I don't. So I get to watch a lot more movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't work either, but I don't I get there's always something going on here at the house, or
Yeah, I was gonna say you have babies in the house. Like I have
yeah,
puppies.
my
Like
grandson's
there's a
here.
huge
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. So I help out with him a
So
lot, and I help everybody else. And so it's a lot going on. And then I get burnt out watching movies. And so I'm like, okay, I got to read for a little bit or watch a TV show or something. So yeah,
I feel that.
yeah,
I feel that. I'm taking this month. I'm taking this month off of horror movies so that I don't have a horror movie burnout.
yeah. I feel that. Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to do Tarantino and I wanted to do Kevin Smith. This kind of get away from horror movies a little bit and then come back to them. So
Exactly.
I'll have some fun doing some other stuff, and especially focusing on some directors I wanted to do. So see if
Yeah.
other people would
It's
enjoy
always
doing them
fun
with.
getting to branch out.
Oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, go do her 100 movies in 92 days hashtag. Um, go follow her at
Yeah.
Spooky Sarah Says on everything.
Yeah, I tweet a lot about the challenge, so if you just go to my pages, you'll see it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on, and we'll definitely
Yeah,
have you
thanks for
on
having me.
for the Kevin Smith series, and we'll
Yes.
have you on for other stuff. And I'm gonna find a way to get back onto Final Girls Feast, and
Heck yeah.
we'll have some fun there too.
Totally.
Thanks again to Sarah for talking Kill Bill with me. Next episode, I talk to Ariel Power Shab about Grindhouse. Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. You can follow the podcast on social media at Creepy and Geeky on both Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to follow me, I'm Geek Thulu on Twitter and geek.thulu on Instagram. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more from our TeePublic page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.